Hello and welcome to the conclusion of my One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'd first like to start with the children's rhyme. It will be relating a lot to what I'll be talking about. It is, tingle, tingle, tangle toes, she's a good fisherman. Catches hens, put 'em in a pens, wire, blyer, limber, lock, 3 geese in a flock. One flew east, one flew west, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. O-U-T spells out, goose swoops down and plucks you out. So first, analyzing this, it's a great quote for the novel, and we really see why the title of the book is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We see that Mr. McMurphy, the protagonist of the novel, is the goose who flies over the cuckoo's nest, and he is also the goose that plucks Chief Broomden, the narrator of the story, out. When it says, goose swoops down and plucks you out, that line at the end there. And we see there are kind of 3 representations of different groups through the One Flew East, One Flew West, the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now we've talked about Mr. McMurphy, but looking at One Flew East and One Flew West, you see the different direction of Nurse Ratched and the patients, how they're kind of going different ways, but we also notice how Nurse Ratched is the good fisherman. She's good at what she does. She catches hens, which are technically her patients, and she puts them in pens. She really imprisons them and manipulates them into doing what she wants them to do. She kind of gets them to, I say here over in my conclusion, to dig their own graves. She has manipulated them so much that she can basically sit back and relax as they kind of manipulate each other too. And we really see that if Mr. McMurphy, the protagonist, hadn't come into the novel, things probably wouldn't be looking so good for any of the men there, and they may have never gotten out, and we see that he takes a Christ-like position despite his interesting values we see in the novel. But he takes a Christ-like position in the way that he kind of saves the men. He really puts himself out there, and then for a while he stops because he sees that Miss Ratched has control over how long he stays at the ward, and since he's not been committed, or he has been committed, sorry, unlike the other patients, he can't just leave. So that really does kind of scare him at a point, but we see it kind of turn when he gets back into his groove and really takes on his rebellious role again after Cheswick dies. Cheswick's a very interesting character as he symbolizes a few things. One of the things he symbolizes, which I love, is his cigarettes. We see that there's a relationship between the parent and the child, and Cheswick really brings the reader to that attention that Miss Ratched has been the supposed parent to the patients and has kind of caused them to be dependent on her. And he's taking control when he says, I want my cigarettes, and Mr. McMurphy goes and gets those cigarettes eventually for him. And especially after Cheswick's death, McMurphy gets quite upset, and that's really when he starts to get back to being rebellious. And even more so after Billy Bibbit's death, where he actually ends up leading Mr. McMurphy to get a lobotomy, which part of his brain is taken out, and he's just not himself after, and that is why Chief Broomden, the narrator of the story, suffocates him and kills him at the end of the novel. So Mr. McMurphy's really being the savior here, though, because he's standing up so much, and despite the fact that he dies, the patients still win in the end. And without him, that wouldn't have been possible. And we see that he also succeeds in plucking out our hallucinating narrator, Chief Broomden. And yeah.